This session, An Introduction to MTSS, is a free webinar offered by the Stark County Educational Service Center. My name is Amanda Nickerson, and I'm so excited to be able to virtually deliver professional development to help support you, your students, and Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. During this session, we will focus on clarifying the definition of MTSS and exploring the rationale. We'll also identify key components and steps for implementation. Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement states that the multi-tiered system of support structure provides a framework for supporting learners based on their unique needs. It can guide staff in designing effective instruction and appropriate interventions as part of school improvement efforts. A multi-tiered system of supports for reading includes full access to grade-level instruction for all learners that is differentiated and designed to meet the needs of all learners in Tier 1 and provide additional targeted instruction in Tier 2 and/or intensive intervention in Tier 3 for students who are experiencing difficulties. The purpose of the three-tier model of instruction is to provide effective core instruction and address reading difficulties as quickly as possible. A multi-tiered system of support framework includes the following key components: multiple tiers of instruction and intervention, the problem-solving process, data evaluation, communication and collaboration, capacity building and infrastructure, and team-based leadership. Multiple tiers of instruction and intervention is a hallmark of MTSS. The traditional 2D pyramid can help us understand that all students should have full access to core grade level instruction in Tier 1, that some students benefit from Tier 2 services, and that few students will require Tier 3 services, with each tier adding a level of intensity that's designed to accelerate the student's rate of learning. When we look at MTSS in 3D, we see an even more robust representation. We see that all students have access to differentiated core instruction, so this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Some students require supplemental support in Tier 2, but note that this support is layered. So these students are receiving differentiated instruction and supplemental support, and pay close attention to that ombre effect. MTSS is a school-wide structure that encompasses general education, so a flexible continuum of services should exist without rigid lines of demarcation. The goal is to prevent and mitigate reading difficulties and other learning challenges so that students can be best served by data-driven, evidence-based, differentiated core instruction. As a learner responds positively to supplemental instruction, the intensity is gradually faded, with the hope that at minimum 80% of students' needs will be met by a strong Tier 1 program. For students who need extra support and do not respond appropriately to strategic interventions in Tier 2, that double dose of instruction, then students may receive more intensive support in Tier 3. Students who receive Tier 3 services may or may not have a formal label, but if the data suggests the need for that intensification, they're entitled to Tier 3 services in addition to Tier 1 core instruction, and potentially alongside or in place of Tier 2 supports. So ultimately, MTSS is a school-wide system of support that's inclusive and supportive of all students. Its success hinges on a well-integrated system that flexibly connects general, gifted, and special education with intervention and enrichment services. Collaborative teams are also essential for shared leadership and effective communication. District building and teacher-based teams have a shared responsibility for improving student outcomes, and problem-solving teams may also convene to discuss individual student needs and concerns. Regardless of the scope of their work, effective teams review, analyze, and use data to assess improvement and identify implementation issues. They also use data to reveal strengths and needs at both the system and student levels. This four-step process moves teams through problem definition, problem analysis, plan development, and plan evaluation. And they essentially ask, what is the problem? Why is the problem happening? What should we do about it? And is it working? In this example, a school identified a problem. At the end of third grade, 50% of their students passed the Ohio State test, and they commented that students needed more support to improve comprehension skills. However, after selecting a screener and using a diagnostic assessment, the school realized that a large percentage of third graders had weak phonics skills. And because they did not have a core phonics program, step 3 focused on putting a program in place. In step 4, since results were inconsistent across classrooms, they identified a need to check for fidelity of implementation, which will continue to propel and refine the work. Data evaluation is a critical component of MTSS because it helps educators identify and respond to student and system needs. In the previous example, the team wanted to address comprehension needs based on the results from an outcome assessment. However, once additional assessments were administered, they were able to identify a weakness in their Tier 1 programming that likely contributed to their students' comprehension difficulties. Notice that on all measures, less than 75 to 80% of students scored at benchmark in the green on this core phonics survey. This indicates a Tier 1 concern that will need to be addressed within the universal tier. Ultimately, the greatest threat to MTSS implementation and school success is poor quality Tier 1. When Tiers 2 and 3 are flooded with students because of weak core programming, the impact of instruction and interventions are diluted. And so this graphic really illustrates the intensification of services that occurs across a healthy MTSS structure. This is what we're protecting when we have strong core instruction. In Tier 1, instruction may be provided to a whole group or small groups, probably both. It should be explicit and systematic instruction using core reading programs that are focused on the essential components of literacy. In Tier 2, you'll note that the group size is reduced, but students 1 and 2 are receiving this in addition to Tier 1 instruction. They're receiving instruction that's more explicit and systematic, that's focused on teaching, reviewing, and practicing targeted skills from Tier 1 instruction that they need a double dose of. In Tier 3, the group size is even smaller, so students are receiving explicit and systematic lessons within a structured evidence-based program that's meant to address individualized needs that are focused on up to about 3 essential components of reading. And again, this is what we must protect through careful planning, teaming, data analysis, and fidelity monitoring. At the systems level, the successful implementation of MTSS demands ongoing planning, continuous improvement, and sustaining and expanding efforts. And this work consists of 3 phases. In phase 1, teams focus on building the infrastructure necessary to support MTSS implementation by conducting needs assessments, identifying priorities, establishing a vision, inventorying resources, developing implementation and evaluation plans, selecting valid assessments and evidence-based interventions, and also focusing PD on building capacity. In phase 2, teams focus on implementing processes, assessment, and interventions. They monitor fidelity of implementation, identify and address barriers through teaming and problem solving, and they focus their PD on refining instruction, refining their data use, and looking at implementation fidelity. In phase 3, teams focus on engaging stakeholders, continuing to build infrastructure and aligning existing systems, even when they are faced with staff turnover and shifting priorities, which happens, and sustaining and expanding MTSS implementation through ongoing data analyses. And as you can see, a healthy, effective MTSS system is a collaborative process that necessitates strategic and data-informed teamwork. It's important for leaders to create a shared vision to build the MTSS system alongside teams of educators and to exercise influence through shared leadership. Success is bolstered by collaboration and the belief that together, administrators, faculty, and students can make a difference. And this is the power of collective efficacy. However, it's not enough to simply believe we can change student outcomes. It's also built on evidence of impact. So we have to continually scrutinize our systems and our data to ensure that we are making a difference. And if we're not, something needs to change. MTSS provides a helpful framework for harnessing the power of collective efficacy by equipping teams to make informed decisions that will lead to improved instructional and behavioral outcomes for all students. Therefore, MTSS should not be seen as one more thing to add to the plate. It is the plate. As educators, we've always been in the business of helping students grow and achieve. We've always focused on training, screening, intervention, and instruction. This is not new. These items have always been on the plate, and they will always be on the plate. However, as we strive to implement a multi-tiered system of supports with robust core instruction, we need to re-examine our systems and practices to ensure that whatever is on the plate is healthy and is likely to help students grow. Thank you for your time, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for your commitment to your students and to learning.